If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. Without going into deep detail to bore people or to confuse people, I want to show you exactly what they're doing as far as the magic potion goes and why they want it in you, because a lot of people keep asking me, why do they want it in you? What's so important about it? A lot of people think it just has to do with depop and having the body reject what's being put inside of it, thus causing the person to go bye-bye. But it's about more than that, because the more the body is getting this put inside of it, there are these particles that are nano, okay? And it has to do with those videos that I showed you a couple weeks ago with the graphene. Having that inside of you, it starts to manipulate and control the sequence of your DNA structure. They openly admit and talk about mRNA and all these other things. We know for a fact that they have been trying to push in superhumans, transhuman, be your own superhero. There's a reason for that. I've talked about it for a long time, about Superman and all these stupid mutant movies, X-Men. Okay, this is about getting this code manipulated inside of your body, because they are going to make humans one with machines. They are going to convert humans pretty much into artificial intelligence. They tell us this right in front of our faces, even when our president, all of our people of Congress, billionaire CEOs, celebrities are all attending the World Economic Forum. They're talking about things like this.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change.
Our bodies will be so high-tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
Right? Now, so you understand the fact that they want to do this to humans. So the only way they can do this by humans is by getting something inside of humans. And they know that people wouldn't sign up for this type of thing. Would they? Doubtful. I mean, there are some dumb people that probably would. Now, let's move on to step 2 of this. The other part of this has to do with tearing of the veil, removing what we're seeing and bringing over what's on the other side. Now, that sounds like crazy talk. I totally understand that. It's hard to comprehend. You have to realize that matter, right? We learn about matter in school, about 2 things could be happening in the same space at the same time. That's them trying to tell you that there is something happening in the same space at the same time. Obviously, there's a lot of people who believe in ghosts. As Christians, we believe in spirits and demons and things on the other side. We know that there is a veil, and they are attempting to lift and break through that veil to make humans live amongst these things. And they're using what they're calling quantum computers, Q computers, whatever you want to call them, the D-Wave computers, to be able to make this happen. I'm going to show you a clip from a guy named Gordy Rose. This guy is as bad as they get. This is like the equivalent of Dr. Frankenstein, somebody who, you know, you never would hear about, who makes not billions, but millions of dollars off of government grants, which pretty much comes from your tax money, so that he can experiment and try to figure out how to bring these things over and how they can digitally do this by playing with the magnetic fields. And that's the key right there, the magnetic fields, the energy in the airwaves, okay? And by having this inside of you, this is where it all works, right? In the airwaves, the magnetism, the frequencies, okay? Here he is, this Dr. Frankenstein, talking about how this is what they're trying to do, and even admitting to summoning demons. You have to listen to it in full. Summoning demons, trying to bring over what's on the other side and create a new world, and really a new world order.
Like this. So, say I'm the President of the United States. So I receive this message from the heavens. So my microwave dish, my SETI dish, finally captures something. And what it says is, in 50 years, or 13 years, we're coming to your planet. You got to be ready. Now just imagine what would happen if that happened. A super intelligent alien race beamed down a message to all of us Earthlings saying, we're coming July 13th, 2030, and boy, you better be ready because the mothership is landing right on the front lawn of the White House or wherever you wanted to land on that day. The amount of resources that would be marshaled to try to figure out what to do would encompass the whole world. AI is just like that. So when this thing that I'm talking about happens, it's going to be exactly the thing that you're thinking about those super intelligent AIs. So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. So alien means, different. These things that we're building are not going to be people. They might be really smart, they might be really good at all sorts of different things, but they're not going to be like us. They're going to be aliens. And they're going to be, I'm sorry to say, way smarter than every single person in this room. So this is an attitude that some are having, this emerging alarmism about the way this is going to go. But these words, demons, doesn't capture the essence of what's happening here. I don't know if any of you are turn-of-the-century weird fiction fans, but there's this guy named H.P. Lovecraft, who's a very famous American weird fiction author. And he espoused a view which is called cosmicism. And the essence of cosmicism is cosmic indifference. So what he was saying is basically, yes, there are these massively intelligent entities out there, but they're not good, they're not evil. They just don't give a shit about you even in the slightest. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, they're not evil, but they're more like the Lovecraftian great old ones. There are entities that are not necessarily going to be aligned with what we want. So this transition is really, really massively important for our entire species to navigate. And going back to that thing that Sam Harris was saying, nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background while people bicker about politics and what's going to be in the healthcare plan in the US, and underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
But before I do that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about quantum computers and why people care so much about them. There are literally tens of thousands of some of the brightest people in the world today trying to build these machines and understand them. And I'm going to tell you why. In my last 15 years of working on this type of stuff, I found that scientists divide up into two categories of zealots about this field. The first half are people who are absolutely entranced by the physics of these things. This quote is from a respectable scientist, in fact, one of the founders of this field, that may look a little strange to you who don't follow theoretical physics, but there is a very clear prediction that our most successful theory of nature makes, and that is that there are an enormous number, mind-bogglingly large number, of parallel realities, as real as this one, that have different consistent histories. So imagine a world where all of the laws of physics as we know them are obeyed, but different decisions were made along the way. Different decisions at the level of tiny microscopic particles, different decisions all the way up to what you chose to eat for lunch, and whether you chose to come to this session or not. Quantum mechanics makes a very specific prediction that all of those are as real as the thing that you remember. And this is bizarre, because we don't see those other things. But science has reached the point now where we can build machines that exploit those other worlds. And quantum computers are perhaps the most exciting of all of these that we have within, or almost within our grasp right now. So people from a physics background love this. They want to understand the world. They want to understand the universe, how it all works. There's another type of person who tends to come from the computer science side that's like, yeah, okay, that's all great. But there's a different thing going on here, which is just as exciting, if not more, and that these machines that supposedly can do this wild stuff, let's forget about how they work, if you could build one, could solve problems that you could never, ever solve with any computer of the sort that we built. If you took every single atom of silicon in the world and made the most sophisticated conventional Intel-style processor that you could build, there are problems we know of that I could write down on a sheet of paper that you could never, ever, ever solve with that thing, that you could with this kind of machine. So that's very exciting. Humans use tools to do things. If you give humans a new kind of tool that can do things that you couldn't otherwise do, imagine the possibilities. So you may think, well, this is all fine and dandy, but aren't these things in the realm of theory and speculation kind of in the same regime as other futuristic things you may have heard of which may be allowed by the laws of physics but aren't here yet? That's not true. There are, in fact, many of these machines deployed now in openly available research centers following the model that was used to introduce supercomputers to the world. They're too big and ornery and difficult to operate to put in your home, too expensive also, but you can give them to a place which will manage them as a shared resource that will offer that service to the world. And there are two of these now. One of them is at the University of Southern California. So these types of computers now are being thought of in the same way. They're not terrifically powerful yet, but they're doing something completely different than what your computer does. And that thing is like flight. It gives these computers access to these new resources, maybe you could call them parallel universes, in order to do something that you couldn't otherwise do. Steve Jurvetson has been a longtime friend and investor in the company, and for those of you who don't know him, he's a Silicon Valley investor who's probably the smartest VC that I know of, and certainly the one that's the most attuned to technological trends. He's on the board of SpaceX, Tesla, Synthetic Genomics, which is Craig Venter's company that's trying to build artificial life, and D-Wave, and that's it. And this is his particularly poetic way of framing the difference between the machines we build and conventional computers. This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. Hundreds of times colder than interstellar space. Amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. At the heart of this big box is a tiny chip about the size of your thumbnail. And on this chip resides all of the wonder and magic that makes this thing go. I'm not going to describe in any mathematical detail how it all works, but let me give you an analogy. In quantum mechanics, there's this concept that a thing can exist in two states which are mutually exclusive at the same time, quote unquote. And I'm using those words because the English language was developed before we had concepts to describe what these things actually are doing. But I'm going to give you a roundabout way of understanding this. Imagine that there really are parallel universes out there, and now imagine you have two that are exactly identical in every respect, all the way out to the horizon as far as we can see, down to the last little atomic detail of every single thing, with only one difference. And that's the value of a little thing called a qubit on this chip, which is a contraction of quantum bit. And that qubit is very much like a bit or a transistor in a conventional computer. It has two distinct physical states, which we call 0 and 1 for bit. In a conventional computer, these are mutually exclusive. That device is either one or the other and never anything else. In a quantum computer, that device can be in this strange situation where these two parallel universes have a nexus, a point in space where they overlap. And when you increase the number of these devices, every time you add one of these qubits, you double the number of these parallel universes that you have access to, until such time when you get to a chip like this, which has about 500 of these bits, you have something like 2 to the 500th power of these guys living in that chip.
Now, I hope that's simplified enough for you. I apologize for some of the language the guy used, but I let the clips flow so you could have an understanding of what they're trying to do. So you might say, well, what does one have to do with the other? Well, what's in the potion has to do with that. It connects. They're connected. They're parallel with one another. There are a bunch of things happening at the same time that do correlate with the mark, that do have to do with the end times and prophecy being fulfilled. But you have to understand that it's more than just taking this. It has to do with that. Remember the clips I showed you with the battery from the Matrix, turning humans into this? The programming we constantly are seeing now of people with their souls being transformed into computers, like Total Recall and those types of movies. There's a reason for that predictive programming and that pattern. You heard in the beginning in the World Economic Forum, they're not talking about this stuff passively at these types of events. They're dead serious about it. And people just go, yeah. Well, what do you think they mean? That's what they mean. But normal people aren't going to be able to comprehend what they're trying to do with the quantum computers. This guy's flat out telling you, this is a guy who, people are sitting there listening, they're oohing and eyeing. They don't even look at the faces on some of these people. Do they realize what they're talking about doing? This is the destruction of humanity, and people are sitting there oohing and eyeing. People like this should be in jail. This is a crime on humanity. But instead, because they know what they have to do, and because society's so stupid, a guy like this is applauded as being a scientific genius, as somebody who's doing great things for the world. 100 years ago, this guy would have been worse than imprisoned for attempting to do this to human beings, attempting to do what they're trying to do. Now, your tax money funds this type of stuff through grants and other things. It's unbelievable, but it's true. So I just wanted to show you that so you could have a little bit of an understanding of what they're trying to do. I'm going to try to make more videos on graphene, about why it's important to get into the body along with the spike proteins and those types of things. But for now, I just thought I would keep it simple with that. An understanding of turning humans into this, to an artificial intelligence, okay? Which they're openly talking about. The president's in the room there, so they're talking about it. It's not like it's just some weird people at a tech convention. That's the World Economic Forum you saw in the beginning. And then this talk about two parallel universes existing at one time through quantum computers, through bringing these things over and these chips that he's talking about. It's all sounds insane, but it's all true. So you have to start having an understanding of this stuff before your head explodes thinking about how ridiculous it all sounds. Understand that this is biblical, even though we can't comprehend it in the matrix that we live in, because we've been given just nothing but lies and everything is just false. All we know is our 9 to 5 pay your bills, go to the gym, eat your dinner, go to bed, and repeat. You even heard the guy say it himself. People are just talking about all this stuff while this is going on right underneath the surface. And that's why so many of us are trying to talk about the things going on under the surface, because everything else is just a distraction and a waste, and souls are going to just fall away and be, Christians are going to become lukewarm because they're going to be unaware of this stuff. So you need to be aware. You can look deeper into it for yourself, look into quantum computers, look into obviously nano, look into graphene, look into, the towers with the G and the 5, all that stuff. It all correlates. It's a big, big plan that's all going down right now as we speak. A reminder, check out the website at callforuprising.com. It's $2.99 a month. I hope to see you guys over there. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Dr. Frankenstein here and of what they're trying to do. I always enjoy reading what everyone has to say. And I want to thank the Patreons for being here. And a reminder again, check out my other channel. Please make sure you sub to it. It's really important that you do. Any strike, I won't be able to upload for a week. So if you like to listen every day, make sure you do that now. Thanks again for being here, everybody. God bless you and your families.